you're there in a support capacity. And people are surprisingly suspicious of you when you first go into schools. But they've really no need to be.
Steve Emerson is an advanced skills teacher at Viner School in the London Borough of Hillingdon. He's been doing the job for 4 years.
Look at that 24 and that 23 in the third row up. What do you think goes in the middle?
As an advanced skills teacher, Steve teaches mathematics at the school for about 1 day a week.
Well done. Good. So you've done 2 sequences in one go then?
This is a Year 9 group and they're looking at number sequences.
You've got 24.
The purpose of the AST role is to allow individuals to continue using their teaching expertise as an alternative to moving into senior management.
This number, that's from this number to 23. 23.5. Well done.
What expectations are there on an AST when it comes to their teaching?
It's to try to find innovative ways of presenting ideas using a lot of ICT. We're a specialist maths and computing college, so we are expected to be trying to promote as much use of the computer as possible. Trying to give them an opportunity to work on their own and working where they're making their own mathematical discovery, I think is all the more enriching because they're going to remember very much more effectively what they do.
What's the attraction of the AST role?
I think it's because the AST role allows you to focus on specific tasks, specific projects, developing resources, writing materials, working on specific short, medium, long-term activities where you can see a beginning, a middle, and although there's never an end, you can see something you can define as an end for the moment. Supposing that said 30 at the top and not 30.5, what would the gap be from 27 to 30? What that means is that you can focus on a task. And I think that's the attraction of the AST role. It's like you're being paid to be specialist.
One key feature of the AST's role is to spread good practice in the school and contribute to policies and planning. Leanne Williams is the newly appointed maths subject leader at the school, and she's come to Steve for his advice about next year's maths sets.
Yes.
And so I wanted to see whether you think it would be best to have them in ability order, because at the moment they're ranked in order of their SATs results.
And so looking at the actual levels that you've got here, these are the actual levels, aren't they, that they got? And so they're all in the low 5s or high 4s, aren't they? So they're going to be targeting effectively a foundation level at the end of the 2 years, aren't they? Okay. In which case, at first glance, the makeup of that first group is probably fine.
Yeah.
My question to you about set 6 would be, well, let's look at the behaviour issues here.
It shouldn't be too bad because I think we've kind of balanced it out. Some of the people that spark off each other have moved out of the group.
They've gone up as well as down. Right, okay.
Yeah.
So as far as this group is concerned, I think really it's just being confident that the number of pupils that you've got in here is workable for the member of staff who's taking the group. Yeah. So I think that's the other factor we have to consider.
So who have we got down?
10 set 6.
This group is Angela.
Yeah, so
and then
they've got a strong member of staff to manage any issues that might arise in that class, which is good.
They go on to discuss the new functional maths draft curriculum that the borough has asked the school to pilot.
And basically they're doing 2 options. They've got the GCSE that includes functional maths.
Sure.
And they've also got this thing called additional maths.
So your rationale then for using this with pupils that would have been targeting the traditional foundation on the 3-tier is, even though it goes up to A star, it's because...
Well, I wanted to convert to the foundation groups to do modular anyway, because I thought it might help with their motivation.
Okay.
So that they can do a little bit of it and see how they're doing and think, oh, actually I could, if I work a bit harder in that, then maybe I could get my C. So that was the idea, that I wanted to do that anyway. And then when this came into place, I thought this seemed to be the sort of right option.
The obvious
for them.
option.
Yeah,
right,
because obviously we've got to do functional maths in some form, and I thought this would quite suit them.
Okay.
What aspects of Steve's expertise does Leanne rely on most?
I think one thing would be curriculum development, and so I think we've discussed before about how A-level especially, Steve has already started to do some work for us on developing the A-level curriculum, which I'd like him to carry on with next year. It's a process that we'll all have input in, all of the A-level teachers, but Steve will be the leading force in that.
It's all very well carrying a label AST and giving support to teachers in certain circumstances according to their need, but there are many things that you actually learn as an AST that you take with you to then better inform the next person that you work with.
So another important feature of the AST role is the opportunity and expectation that they share their expertise and skills with other schools. In Steve's case, this involves 1 day a week helping colleagues at a neighbouring school.
Oh, we're just off to a school that I absolutely love going to. I've been going there now for 4 years, and it is a boys' school called Abbotsfield, which is also part of the London Borough of Hillingdon. I've worked with a variety of people at the school, including obviously the senior managers. The school has emerged from being on special measures and is now on notice to improve, and people have worked their socks off to try to work to improve the standards on offer in teaching in the school, and I just love going there. So for me, this is the most natural extension to my working day that I could possibly have. Again, there is a great will on the part of all the people that I've been working with to really try to get to grips with some of the problems that have dogged the school up to now, and all credit to them. Just privileged to be part of it, really. If we can just do a round-the-table review of what we think has gone well for intervention planning.
This is one of Steve's regular meetings with staff at Abbotsfield School, who he's been helping with strategies to improve their maths teaching. Famida Rawoot is head of maths at the school. Suzanne Gaffney is the Borough of Hillingdon's secondary maths consultant. And Mary Ann Freshwater is the borough's AST coordinator. They're discussing the recent intensive revision support programme that they've been running at the school.
I don't know about you, but I think it's really helped us to identify the weak areas of the boys, and particularly I found using the exam scripts that they wrote and being able to identify question by question where those weaknesses are, and being able to inform not only us but the teachers and the boys where to move next to improve things.
Basically, for me, the main thing was the fact that we analysed the scripts and the pupils were actually given an individual printout of what their individual concerns were.
With flagging up where the areas were for all of those students, it was quite clear that obviously they could have their own individual targets and actually work individually, but actually the programme that we drew up was more of a general picture where we actually spoke to the classroom teacher as well to say which topics have been taught already and clearly need extra work, so that we can actually put the programme together and actually really target some key areas that we thought were actually quite useful.
I mean, it was also apparent that if people blew out on a particular topic, like circle theorems, for example, it was very apparent from the colour coding of the actual, triggered by the mark that they got for that particular question, that a sea of red squares meant there is a problem with this topic. And of course that meant the teachers could work far more effectively as a result of that. So it really did identify where you had columns of red for a whole class, this topic is a problem, full stop.
But how did Abbotsfield School first react to Steve coming to help them out?
The first time I was called in fact, was 4 years ago. So I've been coming here really pretty much since the beginning of being an AST. And I remember the first experience that I had, we had a meeting with senior managers. And we called the department together because a whole variety of issues which were clearly problematic to the functioning of the department had arisen. And that was really the starting point, was to try to have an open and frank discussion around the table. Now that was quite difficult. That was a real act of trust on the part of teachers coming around the table. And we could have done it perhaps differently, but we felt on balance that that was the right way to do it. It was a cards on the table kind of discussion. And although possibly that may have rocked the odd boat, by the same token, it certainly, I think, brought into stark relief an awareness of what was needed.
And how does Head of Maths Famida remember Steve's arrival?
Well, when I started here as Head of Maths, we had just had the results in of the previous academic year, and one of the things that was flagged up in the examiner's report was the fact that the boys were not doing very well in the last strand of the coursework, which was the analysis of their data and explaining their findings, and that is when I decided that we would need external support.
We actually had a look at the coursework marks for the boys and realised it was actually the communication strand, the actual written communication that the boys actually have to do. They were doing very well on the investigation of the actual tasks themselves, but actually when it came to writing things down, especially for boys, we found it was an issue. So that's where we then had to then go through with the teachers what exactly was required from the boys, because quite often that was missed. They could actually do the investigation themselves with the boys, but actually they weren't clear themselves. So again, it went back to training up the teachers to make sure that was all clear. And then obviously then filtering that down to the boys themselves in the classroom.
So there's this ongoing relationship that Steve and Suzanne have developed at the school, in the first instance with the senior leadership team, and then with the maths teachers, and then more importantly with the boys now.
So as things will have arisen, for example, identifying problems with coursework such as Famida did, we're relying on Famida's expertise to identify those problems, to draw those to our attention so that we can then support with appropriate strategies, make suggestions as to how this can be remedied. So it's very much coming back to the idea that it's a consensus approach, it's done by team effort.
I think that in the country, on the whole, very often ASTs feel very much on their own and alone in terms of working with schools. Sometimes working with teachers who are identified as being perhaps less than satisfactory. We want to move that. We've changed that completely in Hillingdon. We've got teachers who are good teachers and with the help of ASTs become excellent teachers. It's part of that drive to raise standards that we have in the borough.
Following our previous discussions about...
As part of this outreach project, Steve is updating the head and deputy at Abbotsfield about the data assessment package that he's devised for them to use across the school.
So I'm going to look at the data picture so far, and I'm going into Year 8 and Mathematics and Set 1, and I've now got the story so far. If they're ahead of expectation, it will go green, and anything below that target's red.
I think Steve coming into school has been certainly invaluable because it's enabled us to tie down the assessments that we need, not just to look at attainment, but also to look at achievement. And I think Steve coming in the system that we have, but also working closely with Mark, means that we can now say to the staff, you are now in control. This is yours. You own it. You need to raise those standards.
As a result of Steve's involvement, this year's exam results at Abbotsfield have greatly improved.
On the many visits I do, I never stop learning from the people that I actually watch teaching. I never stop learning. So I don't know it all. Hello, Matthew. Oh, well done. Brilliant. Now, have you done sheet 6?